Hi, everyone. Welcome to Anderson Ranch and our summer faculty lecture series. My name, my name is Andrea Wallace. I'm the Vice President of Artistic Affairs. Before we begin, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. I want to start by recognizing that the Anderson Ranch campus resides on the historic tribal lands of the Ute people, who called the area home for over 800 years. In honor of this legacy, we focus on building an inclusive community and maintaining this as a place for inspiration, creativity in the center of the Rocky Mountains. I'd also like to get started. Sorry, this is from the other day. Sorry. Okay. Tonight's program will consist of 2 faculty lectures followed by a Q&A. We'll have Mike for the Q&A, so when we move to that section of the program, if you just put your hand up and wait till the mic gets to you before you ask your question, because we do have people who are watching online. So first I would like to introduce Rob Hill. Rob Hill is a geometric abstract painter from LA. He holds a BFA from the California College of the Arts, and his work has been featured in Vogue, the New York Times, Art Basel, and more. His admiration for geometric shapes is linked to historic Egyptian architecture, painting, and visual culture. Please give him a warm ranch welcome, Rob Hill.
Hello, everybody. Just want to say thank you to Anderson Ranch for allowing me this opportunity. Another time again, so thank you for that. Hope everybody has had a great time since they've been here at the ranch, and I hope that you are gathering creativity and meeting some great people here at the ranch. Let's get started. So basically, I like to just keep things simple. I'm an abstract painter. I'm from Los Angeles. A lot of my influences came from my childhood, growing up, and just being within my culture, being around a lot of great people in my family. I didn't grow up in an art, like a big art background at all. I'm pretty much the first artist in my family to take art super serious. I got a lot of my influences from 90s television shows like Martin, Fresh Prince, and Living Color. My methodical approach is heavily influenced by my 8 years of military service in the U.S. Coast Guard. The patterns and are inspired by global travel and my life experiences. My affinity for geometric shapes can be linked to historic Egyptian architecture, painting, and visual culture. Over time, I've applied my unique aesthetic off of canvas onto plenty of different surfaces, denim, leather, glass, metal, wood, etc. My most powerful work comes from giving back, honestly, doing a lot of community work, doing projects with kids, and doing projects with a lot of different people, companies, spaces that are about things being diverse and unified, and that's where my work speaks the most. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of great community projects with the Boys and Girls Club, USC Book Festival, and a lot of different things in Denver. I don't want to go too long with this. And as I keep producing, my principal theme of unity unfolds through an intersection of line, texture, angle, and color. Ultimately, I am an artist with deep roots to my community. These are my inspirational artists at this moment. Mark Bradford, we share a parallel life kind of growing up in Los Angeles, and he's a great artist, great person. Carmen Herrera, great masking artist, and I just love her work and the way that she's kind of handled the art world and just coming into the art world very late in her 90s and getting her recognition a little bit late. Jackson Pollock for his attitude as far as the art world goes, and the late, great Frank Stella, of course. A lot of my art started in fashion, so my first canvas was denim jackets, shoes, pants, and stuff like that. Did it to, fit in, try to be cool with the people around. And that led me to just more opportunities. These are just some pictures of some detailed shots of some of the things that I've painted as far as fashion goes. This is the opportunity that I had with a company called Alexandrino out of Brazil, which I had to hand paint 160 shirts. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. You get tired of shirts after that. But it made it into Vogue. And so that was a pretty big accomplishment. I never ever thought to see my artwork in any magazine, honestly. I was just really happy to be able to paint and just live a different life after the military, honestly. These are some of my first works. Like a lot of my influence, like I said earlier, came from Egyptian architecture and just the history, honestly. Like when I first started painting, I found a like 5th grade book and it really detailed the artwork that they used on like the tombs and stuff like that within Egyptian history, and culture. And for me, I just felt like it was just like breathtaking, just to see some of the things that they were able to do at that time, and just like the creativity at that time, which I don't think people talk about too much. But I had this thing for gold, and I had to shake it, to be honest, because I felt like every one of my pieces were just filled with gold lines and gold frames, and it just started to look a little crazy. So, and so I moved on to working on paper, and I guess my work in paper, I don't do a lot of work on paper, but it is my, I guess you could say, like my gym or somewhere where I can practice, and I like to, I don't do any sketching with any of my paintings or any of the things that I do. So a lot of this stuff, I have to just get up, do it, make sure that, I'm just focused on painting. I like to push my work in various ways, and definitely over the time, it has grew and expanded. This is a project that I did with USC. It's a great project. A lot of the kids are there to paint, help, and then I come in and finish the work. So it was good to just meet a lot of people, see the kids show their creativity, and just allow them to have some ownership when it comes to art. And it's kind of hard being an artist and handing over a paintbrush to anybody to complete something or help you with something at times. But this definitely was good. This was the end piece. The kids kind of went crazy after a while. You had to just like slow them down before it became a mess. But it was fun, like I said, and a lot of people loved the piece, so I enjoyed it. These are just a couple of the murals that I did early on in my art career. They're very, I love to show them just so you can, see kind of the progression. But yeah, it was good to work on these projects just because they were for some good people, good spaces, and of course the Boys and Girls Club is always a great place to be able to put up artwork and allow kids to be able to see that on a daily basis. This is a refrigerator that I painted with Gagano for a project. They've never ever did anything color based as far as their appliances, and I was the first person to basically paint something, put some artwork on their products, and to be honest, it did really well, and I felt like this was like an opening for artists to be able to start to explore different avenues as far as where their artwork can go and where it can be placed. Shortly after that, I started to focus more on material use. I got into a lot of wood pieces. These pieces all consist of just wood, fabric, leathers, metals, and glass. This was a time where I really was trying to expand my work. Like, I was watching everything. I was on YouTube. I was going to various places just to get inspiration and to see where the artwork could go at this time. And this was fairly early on. And that led me to another project that I did with Maya Angelou Community Schools in Los Angeles. It's a K through 12 school. This was a really dope project because we were able to put up 20 murals in a K through 12 school. So I know me, I didn't grow up with murals in my school. We just had the mascot little artwork on our school, and that was pretty much it. And I took no art classes in school, so I knew nothing about any of that. But I'll show you guys. Oh, there it goes. Mind you, I really needed these kids at the time. And this was the finished product on the left. Like I said, those are the type of projects that I like to like put myself into because it is very community. It shows a lot of diversity in the process. We had to do a lot of back and forth with the community as far as everybody in that community approving the work and having some type of connection to it. So that was a very nice project to do with the kids. I do a fair amount of murals now, and I feel like that is definitely a different world as far as the art world goes, and how I really am a canvas painter, but I was pretty much tasked with a mural once, and it kind of just kept going from there. So this is like another portion of my life at CCA. I never thought that I would ever go to art school, honestly, because of my background and not ever like being around art growing up. But once I got out of the military and started to take it serious, it showed me a lot, and it was pretty much like a savior to for me, and just dealing with anxiety and stuff like that, and just moving back into the real world as a civilian. So once I got to CCA, I started to push dimension a lot more. I was taking a lot of different classes, industrial design classes, furniture classes, and all types of things, just trying to push and propel my practice as much as possible. And in my furniture class, I was able to make a lot of really nice furniture pieces. This is a table that acts as a bench for showings, so that you can, see the artwork. And it's a heavy table, honestly. It's it's white oak, and it's extremely heavy. I don't really like to bring it out at all. But it was very fun to make, and just to see where my aesthetic could be placed and just how far I can take it. And I'm always in search for that challenge for myself every day. These are a couple of other pieces that I created when I was at CCA. And like I said, I was just pushing things that I've never tried before and trying to just find some new things. For me, like I tell everybody else, I like to go to the studio and just shoot shots. It's not always a game. Everything doesn't have to be a masterpiece. You have to practice and, become familiar with what you're doing to become the best at it, honestly. So for me, like I said, I don't do a lot of sketching. I don't do any sketching, let me rephrase that. And so these pieces, they tend to, become chaotic at times, and sometimes I can draw back. But I feel like a lot of these pieces have to do with the time frames and where I am in life, and sometimes it's a lot of tension, and sometimes it's calm and collective and fun. So. Okay, so this is one of my favorite pieces. This is kind of like a turning point in my artwork. Commonalities represents everything that my art really is about. I'll give you this brief description. This country thrives off diversity, but too often we find ourselves focusing on the things that makes us different from one another. It can be where we come from, the language we speak, the religion we practice, skin tone, etc. We then create more separation and tolerance for one another. Commonalities represents all that we share in common, no matter one's background. I utilize an array of different brown colors to showcase the diversity within our skin tones. The textured fabrics such as paisley, suede, denim, leather, African print, quilt, etc. reveals the ways in which we all hold unique experiences with them. One can point out the common threads that unite us and begin to see people for who they are rather than the labels. It's through these differences that one can lift the veil and see all that we actually share in common. This piece is made of acrylic oil, and the shirt is made of different fabrics and leathers. And I would say this was the fusion, this was the turning point, this was like the next level for me, because I felt like I was able to finally bring fashion into my artwork, like cohesively. And yeah, I was very happy with this piece, and honestly, I applied to a lot of different things, and this piece got me into a lot of different just residencies and gallery opportunities. So. These are just the family members, basically. This is Unity Island, just another piece that's, it speaks to just people kind of having a hard time unifying these days, and people just being so separated. My work is always talking about and speaking on the fact that we need to come together a lot more, especially as artists as well. That commonalities led to me trying different things with fabric, and it led me to this, which is a 40-foot mural, all fabric, that I did in Rhino in Denver. Around, I want to say it's been about 1.5 years now since I did this. This was super challenging. I did a lot of cutting. Like, I did so much cutting that I almost thought, like, man, I don't think I want to do these pieces. But it was fun, and it actually came out really, really nice, and yeah, people just gravitated to it, and it just showed another kind of another level to what I can do as far as pushing the work. And you probably hear me say that all the time, because I'm always challenging myself. I do that on a daily basis, all the time, just trying to see where the artwork can go, and because it's so simple, just using like triangles and color and line, sometimes that can just get kind of old. So I felt that it is my duty to like push and explore within my practice to try to make it, just make it a place where I really, really love to just work and like create on a daily basis. That led to another project that I did at the Denver Arts and Venues building. These were three 30 feet by 28 feet pieces that were installed. Honestly, yeah, it was really good to see them. But I'm so used to like being the person painting on and not actually installing or having someone else install them. So This was just another like tick or another like tool that I put on my belt to just like understand the things that I will be faced with and some of the projects that will kind of come and be presented to me, and just be ready for them, honestly. This is another mural. All of these, and I kind of show them like this because they all led from the last piece. So they're just connections. And I feel like the more opportunities that you have, they just connect you to the next thing that you will be doing within the art space. This is at Roots Music Project. It's a music space that invites everybody, and they just kind of like jam out. They had like, while I was painting there, they had like some kids, and they were doing like schoolhouse rock type of thing, and they're just like going crazy in there. And they're like 9 years old to like 11-year-olds, like 7-year-olds, and they're all playing instruments like at a very high level. So it was really good to partner with them for this project because they do a lot of community work, and it's a nonprofit, and that's where I always want to see my work is next to community, and yeah, just pushing people to be together. This is another portion of my life that I'm in right now. So this is the most recent. I'm currently at Pratt, finishing my master's, and of course you're being challenged, and every day you're in that space, so you see a lot, and it's in New York too. So every single day it's like just coming at you, and you have to figure out how to handle it and how to stare being there. But it definitely has pushed me, just seeing a lot of artwork every single day and going to different shows and stuff like that. So I've been pushing my work. The piece on the left is called Energy, and it's a piece that's connected to commonalities, but it serves its own purpose as far as just being a form that is about people and like not being about all of the negativity that's kind of placed on us in this world at the moment. And from there, it led to me making this other piece called Eyes, which I felt like me just getting to Pratt, I experienced a lot of like staring and people like, who are you? And this and that. And so it led me to make this piece just kind of to let people know kind of some of the things that are kind of going on in my life and some of the things that I'm thinking about currently. And these are two pieces that I've created probably in the last like 2 months. My woodworking skills kind of came out and allowed me to make these frames for these pieces. I think that it was a good additive to the pieces because it kind of gives it a continuation from the center of the canvas, and it just kind of continues out. Yeah, it's always fun to work in the wood shop and to just push my creativity. Okay. And the black and white one led to this one called Tension, and that was just me taking too many classes at one time, and honestly, just going through life, living in Denver and living in New York at one time is pretty hectic. My first semester was crazy. I had to fly to Denver every weekend to fulfill projects that I already had pretty much agreed to, and I didn't want to go back on those. And so I'm just starting to think a lot more about color usage in my paintings, and just being very particular about the intention as far as the colors that I'm using and the moves that I'm making at this moment. And this piece, you probably won't believe it, but led me to kind of take a break from painting for a little bit and move more into a space where I'm working with metals. Oh my lordy. Okay. And so this is where I'm at right now at this particular moment, making metal pieces and very, very much thinking about installation over the next couple of years. This piece is called No Right Way. From one side, it's completely metal, and then from the other side, it's pretty much all color. So it's kind of playing a little bit of an illusion on you while walking around it. But this is where I'm currently at, and I plan to, just continue to use metal and wood within my work and just force my hand as far as material usage and, doing more projects. So, thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Our next speaker is Kate Leonard. Kate Leonard is an artist and professor of art at Colorado College, where she directs the Graphics Research Lab, an innovative printmaking and design program. She works from her studio in Manitou Springs, which is a vibrant art community at the foothills of Pikes Peak and the Rocky Mountain Range. She travels widely, teaching workshops on her innovative painting and photographic transfer methods, including our very own Anderson Ranch. Please welcome Kate Leonard.
Yeah, that's better for me, thanks. Thank you. I wanted to thank Andrea and Esther for having me at the ranch, and for all of you here tonight spending a little bit of time with me. And thanks, Rob, for that fabulous presentation. Some of the students in my class know I kind of changed things up right before I decided to give this talk to give a few more thoughts on process as opposed to some of my end product. And that came from overhearing a sort of poignant conversation that I overheard at lunchtime where somebody, not from my class, but I'm sure it's happening in my class as well, Tuesday at the ranch, hearing somebody say, I just have no idea what I'm doing. I'm incapacitated by the possibilities, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. So I sort of went to my talk and sort of shifted a few things. So perhaps I thought it might be helpful to show a few things that were ideas. They're not preparatory sketches in sort of outlining the image, but they might be sort of things that I call like sparking tinder for an idea. So please forgive me in advance if it's a little disjointed as I kind of added some things in here. So I was thinking I might share some of my sketches for projects and some thoughts about the creative process, specifically the idea of intentional practice. And you heard Rob talk a little bit about that, the idea of getting up and doing. And so you've all made the decision to come to the ranch. I think of intentional practice as a system of working where you're fully awake to your various senses and can make mistakes, reflect, respond, and then most importantly, repeat that process. I thought this might be helpful. Like, as I said, I overheard a conversation that made me think that maybe I could offer a few thoughts on this tonight. I think of intentional practice as operating on the edges of my abilities. And during a week like this at the ranch, we are collectively asked to move to that edge of your abilities to my abilities and to all operate there. I think about that process as setting a small goal that slightly exceeds our current abilities, that sense of a stretch or a reach, and that definitely is not comfortable for any of us. I think about what does that state look like, that idea of an intentional practice. I think of it as operating on the edge of a boundary with your senses fully open and perhaps with an urgency of intention. I think of it as that feeling of being on your toes on the stack of books you piled up to reach beyond your limit because you have to draw that picture on the steamy window. You all remember that feeling. I remember it. I hope my daughter who's here tonight remembers that. That's a picture of her. And that I think of as intentional practice. I think of it as those small moments where you forget anyone is watching you, even if it's just for an instant. So you forget the rules of what a material is supposed to be used for. Perhaps you instead find out what a material could possibly do. This is intentional practice. Your senses are fully open. Intentional practice requires energy. I think of it as a motivational fuel. Sparking tinder is the phrase I use to myself. I'm looking for that spark. I think of this sparking tinder as, why do I want to get better at something? And how is motivation created and sustained? I think there's a lot of mythology about motivation. While we like to think about inspiration as something that it's internal, I believe that many significant motivations come from responding to a formative external cue. Can you remember a moment when you're able to see your future self in others around you, or someone that came before you, a sense of visualizing the artist or designer you want to be? Visioning is a powerful tool that can trigger a belief in yourself that you can achieve a goal. When the spark of excitement combines with intentional practice, there's an exponential velocity that can occur in your creative work. When motivation combines with this intentional practice, your sensations are both fully open and focused. You invite a feeling of heightened sensation. The Greek word aesthesia refers to this state, an ability to feel sensation. It's the opposite of being in anesthesia, the numbing of our senses. So I tend to look for ways of paying attention when I'm cutting something, when I'm lifting glue, when I'm rubbing a surface. I try to find ways to break down larger ideas into smaller investigations. Can I chunk those ideas into preparatory studies that have low stakes investments? Can I slow down, speed up, and then think about those fragments of investigation, perhaps where they lead to larger concepts? I thought I could show you a few of these chunks. I take photographs, and I'd also do some sketching, and I could show you a few of those that would grow into some larger projects, sort of thematically. So let's take accumulation is something that I'm fascinated by. We can all relate to accumulation and the fight we have with the objects that gather in our spaces. But I also like to think about the forces of accumulation, something like static electricity, or something like the concept of time as a force behind accumulation. I'm particularly drawn to the natural forces when they swallow traces of human marks. Accumulation in the world around, when I'm kind of in my shop or in any sort of space, I'm looking for accumulation as an expressive device. It's either additive, as you can see here, where these knobs become blackened by inky hands in the print shop, or subtractive. As you see here, a latch on a bathroom stall wears away the paint from countless swings back and forth across the surface. So by looking at those, can I, as an artist, the practice of everyday noticing wear and accumulation, can I translate that into my paintings where the forces of wind and weather, I hope to show the forces of wind and weather acting across the land and the sea? Or maybe a sunken structure that accumulates through transfer layers under the surfaces of the water. Another quick chunk that I'm going to show you is this concept of back and forth, and I'm going to use just this series, Everyday Life Divided series that I worked on. I use photographs to sketch ideas. So I noticed the concept, in this particular case, the concept of back and forth, sort of moving back and forth and an implied axis around there. Back and forth between a friend's cut cake and a woven piece on a bench below. Maybe adding shallow depth of field to confuse that looking back and forth. But those were sketches for a series that was called Everyday Life Divided, that used that sense of back and forth, comparing across a strong axis, and a project where I tried to express the concept of I am here, but I wish I was there. And there's another one piece from that series. Push-pull was another chunk, maybe, that I could tease out of a project to show you. And here I use the project I entitled Quiet Gifts Series. This series started from a photographic sketch I took of my daughter in the instant she presented worms she had found, and presenting them sort of at full arm's length. Trying to back away photographically, I couldn't, and the depth of field was quite strong in terms of her face being pushed back, and then focusing on that those worms that probably weren't alive at the moment, but still the excitement was present. And the idea of presenting a sort of like a quiet gift was that series. Using that as opposed to sort of the back and forth of the previous series, whether or not I could explore this concept of push and pull spatially, literally presenting a wet board and then a vast ocean sort of like pulling back in space that direction. Same thing, this is from that same series of quiet gifts, being able to something tossed into the ocean, looking at the way in which the wormholes are generating those sort of spiral gatherings, and then the swirls of the algae later in the day or maybe later in the week, and then combining that kind of photographically. Whether the sand is literally kind of pulled across the side and hopefully the composition continues, or the sky is pushing down on that surface. In our class today, we were talking a lot about the idea of the way in which the picture frame can lead or direct, and here like a splash of water frozen photographically with a very quick kind of timing of the photograph, and then the birch bark sort of falling away and pulling us back into that space of the picture. The next series, I thought, just a couple of other examples of chunking concepts thematically, is this concept of darkness is your ally. And I'm going to use this series I created, the Alice Looking series. So the question I might ask myself as a fairly shy photographer is, what happens if I pay attention after everyone has left? There are many of you who work photographically who are comfortable either sketching, drawing, or painting, or photographing with other people. What's the question what if I pay attention to things after everyone has left? Using darkness as a compositional, but also as a sister ally in a moment of photographing to create a fictional narrative, to allow your mind to wander into what's possible in the photograph. This is a photograph that is the opening photograph of the series I entitled Alice Looking. And you can see Alice looking into the puddle, and this is a slide that just happened to have a magical character of light to it that I shot from above. So hopefully it's kind of confusing. Am I looking up towards that portal? Is Alice looking into that? And everyone had left this scene. And I would just encourage, many of you who work in photography to just remain just that few moments longer. And this is a case where the entire playground was muddy and filthy. And having that at the back of my mind, I knew if I just stayed longer, all of those parents would pull the kids off of the equipment because they were tired, they were covered in mud, it was rainy, but the light sort of cleared, and it led to an unbelievable quality of light on that slide. This is one of the intermediary photographs in that series where we descend into the world below as Alice has opened that portal. Once we're below in that fictional, this is a trampoline that I crawled underneath to fetch a ball that had come out, and I looked up. And again, if you're paying that idea of intentional practice, those senses are fully engaged, and I looked up and I thought, what if I just shoot this to see the moray pattern that occurred, of that interference of that scrim was really powerful. And then I could see that I was going to stay hunched under that trampoline to be able to try and capture some moments of the interactions of that underworld and overworld, and the figures that could just, by incident or accident, if you're there fully ready to take those shots as a photographer, to be able to be fully present. I think of myself as an interloper between mediums, between techniques, and I really do thank the ranch and Andrea's insight into allowing the class that we offer here, because it's somewhere in between printmaking and photography. So these are an example of some of my prints where you have digital images on Japanese papers that are run through the inkjet printer, and then the back sides of those pieces have etchings, copper plate etchings printed on the backs where that transparency comes through. These are a couple of examples of those pieces, and they tend to have this overall field. This led to a piece maybe 2 years ago that I was working on these combining silk screen with photo transfers and painted marks to kind of revisit this water surface. The current project that I'm working on is called Snow Blindness, Aphasia, and it's kind of looking at, and these are in progress, so I thought I'd also show you, hopefully these are some things, if you stop by the studio at the end of the week, these are where they are right now, and maybe if I'm sort of operating on that edge that I'm kind of calling present here in the room tonight, of operating on the edge of my abilities, maybe I can get some transfer images on them to start to work them, and hopefully they won't necessarily look like this at the end of the week, but I'd invite you to come to the studio and take a look. These are very much in progress pieces. I was wondering if you might be interested, for some of you, I've seen a number of folks sketching out around campus, and if you're interested, I could share some of my drawing practice, my sketchbook practice, if you would be interested. I have a number of them. Would you be okay? It's a little bit separate, so I sort of ask if it would be of interest to you, because like Rob mentioned, the idea that you get up and do, and if that's in the particular technique that you work on, if it's in the particular material, if it's when you're at work or you're being a parent or you're doing something else, is there something you can do that can connect you to the process of thinking about visual images or translating the world around you? So I show this image because I had to kind of figure out something that I can do as a single parent of twins when I was both taking care of two very active young people, and also trying to continue kind of taking note of the world around me. So you could see I took a lot of photographs, but also I'm a big believer in what happens after dark. And so whether or not you draw on site or whether you draw from photographs, drawing ended up being something that I ended up really leaning heavily into in the past. My twins are now turning 19. So these are some studies, and I thought I would just show you, they're quite different from, in certain ways, I would say, from my paintings, but you'll begin to kind of see maybe compositionally or just the frenetic use of that line maybe is the opposite of sanding and abrading those surfaces. This is a sketchbook that I would kind of position myself in, like a museum, or I was going to a museum and I'd position myself. This is a fun one where a whole group of folks came in and they made a beeline straight for it's like it was a pink tufted chair in the middle of the room, straight beeline to that to sit. And whenever people are kind of sitting or at pause, they make for great sketches. So I'd encourage you to draw each other And this is another, this is a Seattle sketchbook that I did, and you can, there's the fish markets over there on the left. This is the library in our, they got some ergonomic chairs, and I was really fascinated by looking at those. That's the upper view of the Met, looking down at the foyer in the Met. And this is another sketchbook of some ideas. And you can see my background is in etching, in drawing on metal plates. And so these were studies for etchings that I completed, small copper plate etchings. So you're only the second group that I've shown these sketches to, so they've accumulated over the years. But like I said, I saw a few of you out there sketching, so it might be helpful to know your peers are also sketching with you in their books, maybe late at night back at the studio. So that's what I thought. We have some time maybe for some questions, but thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Kate. That was wonderful. Does anyone have any questions for Rob or for Kate? And I think they're going to both get some chairs and pass the mic back and forth.
Rob, I'll hand you this. Thank you.
Hello. This question is for Rob. Hi, Rob. I'm right here. So I just stand up because I'm short. I'm just going to ask you, what is you were talking about working with the community and how you were working with, kind of approvals with everyone that you worked with. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about your process of working with the community and how you decide on, the format, or is it design process also negotiated, or how could you just give us some insight on that?
So as far as the community projects go, some of them are a little bit more community like driven as far as having people in the room and actually selecting certain things. But when you're putting up murals at a school, you can't have certain content on the walls. You can't, have certain, fonts and language on there that's any negative stuff at all. But for me, the basketball court, I did have to do a little bit of a mock-up, but a lot of the times, like, my aesthetic kind of, crosses over, and people kind of know what they're going to get at the end. But I always want to make it unique to the space and where I'm creating, so.
I have I have a question for Kate. Well, I do actually have a comment to start with. The pieces that you said are in process, I was super intrigued by, and they make me think of looking through a windshield in a snowstorm, like when you're driving. That really evoked something interesting for me. And I was thinking about your pieces as you were showing the landscapes, and they feel so unbound and so expansive. And I know the scale might not be huge, but they have that sensibility. And so my question is, when you display your work, or maybe even in the future as you imagine it, how do you frame these pieces? Do you let them be expansive in the way that I'm talking about, or how do you think about installation?
Thanks for the feedback on the snow blindness pieces. I'm really intrigued by where they're going to head, so I'd love for any of you to come by and give me some feedback on those. They are quite modest in scale, all of the works, and so this idea of can you create a vast expanse in a small pictorial space? They are framed with a sort of like there's nothing in front of them, but a sort of a box and a bounding box. And I do think for those of us who are photographers or designers, that sometimes the first question or first maybe challenge that we're given is the size, right? Or asked to do if I'm doing an illustration or if I'm doing a copper plate etching, maybe I'm thinking about that size. And so I'm kind of framing within that. So I'm really fascinated by what happens at the edge of the picture frame and how that kind of elicits the sense of that portal that you can kind of zoom through and expand by. But I think that would be the same thing with like the bounding box of some of the spaces that you're given in a mural, or like that you have to work within within that. So it's probably something all of us kind of deal with. The inspiration for that snow blindness, if any of you had that perceptual effect of snow blindness, where you lose that peripheral vision, is a brain injury that I incurred after a car accident. And so aphasia is the inability, I have the inability to name simple objects. And so I was trying to figure out a way of paralleling that experience with that loss of perception that occurs when you experience snow blindness. Excuse me.
I have a question for you, Rob. I was so impressed with seeing your work, but then kind of shocked when you mentioned you're going to Pratt. And so being so accomplished, is it awkward at all? Or I imagine I just think you're way more advanced than your teachers. So have they been any help at all? And I guess I have to say, maybe you should reconsider it. But that's just my opinion.
Thank you. No, that's not my approach. I honestly, I have some great teachers, and they know things that I don't know. Like I said, I didn't come from an art background, so I'm still learning a lot of things that have to do with the art world and some of the moves and things that are starting to present themselves within my career. But I'm not better than any of my teachers. They have some great careers going for themselves, and I'm just hoping to someday teach and be able to pass on the knowledge and wisdom that I have.
Hey, Rob, another question for you. Also, great name. My name's Robert. So, in looking at your work, I'm fascinated by at least what hearing more about what your process is, because as you mentioned, you don't sketch, and I don't know how much prior planning you do going into any of these pieces, but it sounds like you're doing a lot on the fly, real time, which I think is amazing. And I guess the point of my question, or what I want to get to, what I'm fascinated by, is in my mind, when you're doing work like that, these geometric shapes, all these triangles and angles and all this stuff, there's always a tighter angle you can put in there, a smaller triangle you can put on top of another one, or whatever. And I imagine, again, at least to me, it seems like it'd be easy to just fall into the vortex of just more and more and angles and this and that, just always wanted to add. So when you're working real time and you're caught up in a piece, how are you able to edit or refine your work in order for it to just keep it from just running away from you, if that makes sense?
So my process is very intuitive, of course, because I'm not planning anything. If it is anything that's planned, it might be a color, like one color that I truly want to use. Outside of that, I really think that it's important for me to just let it flow and just let the work like come to me in the moment. Every time I try to write something down or sketch, I just feel like I can't do it. And it doesn't work out for me in the best way. But when I'm in the process, it's just being there, like totally there, 100%, and just blocking everything out when I'm in the studio. And I'm always in the studio, honestly, and I have my headphones on and I'm just zoned in. and yeah, just focus on the painting. I don't do multiple paintings or anything, so my focus is truly on that painting for me to give it all that I have, honestly.
I have a question for Kate. I was thinking about mark making and photography, and I was wondering how you think about that, whether it's something that's separate or combined when you're, thinking about making an image and thinking about making marks.
As somebody who is, I don't think of myself as a photographer, and then I sort of am self-conscious of talking about photography. But, and even in the class that we have over in photography right now, there are far more experienced photographers who use things like extended exposures and things like that. So I think of things like the camera, the shutter speed, those kinds of things as devices that would be parallels. But the interesting thing is that I see a stillness in the photographs that's countered by, if you see how I draw, that's so fast. And so I really haven't kind of figured out how that mark making actually translates to photography. So if you have any insights, I'd love to get your
No,
thoughts
I don't.
on
I
it.
was just curious
Yeah.
because you really are working with both. Any more questions? Oh, one last question.
I'm not sure if you maybe both have approaches to this question, but I think you both could. But how do you think of art as a healing device? Maybe if you could say something short, each of you, that'd be cool.
Can you repeat the question?
I think of art a lot as a healing device, kind of a cognitive device of one's own kind of healing and progression forward, kind of letting go, kind of manifesting of self in different ways. And I was just curious if each of you had a language that is from your own background about how art has functioned as a healing device within your practice.
I would say just the thought of just being free and being able to do something. Like, I know it might sound different for me because a lot of my stuff had to deal with the military before, and so now it's like somebody opening a gate and letting me just run free. And honestly, that has been like the healing for me, to be able to do art every single day. Like, I can depend on art every single day. I don't have to worry about it not being there for me, basically. So dealing with, different things that I dealt with in the military, anxiety, depression, and stuff like that. Yeah, art is it's a healing thing, honestly, for me, just to let my thoughts go and it's kind of like the canvas is like a therapist for me, honestly.
I think I would have different answers, maybe at different stages of my life, and I have a defensiveness maybe about that art somehow should be healing. So earlier on, I would sort of defend its abilities to do a lot of different things, and maybe be less, to be honest, to be less open to the fact that art can be significantly important to healing processes, which I think I have seen both as the actual act of physically making something. So I don't see it as maybe as separate from other things, that I think if anything that sort of attaches you to a moment in time, to a physical presence, to another person, to have a conversation with somebody, those are all things that I see can be related to art making, but aren't necessarily related to art making. Some people can be very isolated in their studio and maybe not necessarily talking to somebody else. Their healing path with art could be, could be one way of working. Somebody else could be having a lot of conversations with somebody, the material themselves processing. So I think the question is very good, but it's extremely vast.
I just think maybe for you had mentioned about a concussion, and
Yeah.
I was just curious about for me, I've had similar experiences in terms of kind of how do you, using it as a memory device, accessing memory prior to the concussion, and then my present self and past self. And I was just curious if you had some, or if navigated similar language within your own.
I have leaned heavily on the idea of making those in a space where I don't have to actually name something. I do not have to speak when I'm making those paintings. I can make decisions without having to name that particular material or something. And so when I'm struggling throughout the day and then go to turn to doing that material, that sanding, that painting, I feel a degree of perhaps confidence that I've lost in my ability to speak. So.
Thank you.